Άκρως αρνητικά είναι τα αποτελέσματα της ετήσιας έκθεσης της Διεθνούς Διαφάνειας σε ό,τι αφορά τα επίπεδα διαφθοράς στη χώρα μας. Είναι ενδεικτικό ότι μόνο το Μεξικό από τις χώρες μέλη του ΟΣΑ καταγράφει χειρότερα επίπεδα διαφθοράς από την Ελλάδα. Στις χώρες μάλιστα που πλήττονται από την κρίση χρέους, τα επίπεδα διαφθοράς παρουσιάζονται αυξημένα.
Η ανάκαμψη της οικονομίας, επομένως, είναι συνυφασμένη με τη μάχη κατά της διαφθοράς. Και το ερώτημα είναι πώς μπορούμε να προσελκύσουμε νέα κεφάλαια επενδύσεων όταν οι νόμοι δεν εφαρμόζονται, όταν η παρανομία αγνοείται αντί να τιμωρείται, όταν οι συνεπείς φορολογούμενοι πληρώνουν περισσότερα ενώ η φοροδιαφυγή εξακολουθεί να βασιλεύει. Αν δούμε το αδήλωτο εθνικό προϊόν, ξεπερνάει το 1/3 από το δεδηλωμένο. Αυτό το έχουν πει πολλοί οικονομολόγοι και οι εκτιμήσεις είναι από 30% και 38%. Λέω εγώ το 1/3 τουλάχιστον συντηρητικά.
Κύριος Μπακούρης εστί, εργαζόμενος στην Union Carbide κάποτε. Η Union Carbide, θυμίζω, ήταν διευθυντής της Ευρώπης. Η Union Carbide είναι αυτή που γκάβωσε χιλιάδες ανθρώπους και πλήρωσε όλα και όλα $15 εκατομμύρια στην Ινδία, στο Μομπάλ. Η Union Carbide, η έκρηξη που έκανε 25 χρόνια να βγει απόφαση και για 200.000 πεθαμένους τυφλούς, γκαβούς, διαλυμένους ανθρώπους. Πέρσι βγήκε η απόφαση και βγήκε ο κόσμος στο δρόμο. Αυτή είναι η διεθνής διαφάνεια. Έχει το κύριος Μπακούρης, ο οποίος ήταν αυτός που είχε αναλάβει την Ολυμπιάδα. Δεν τα κατάφερα και μετά τη δώσαν στη Γιάννα Αγγελοπούλου.
Πες καλά και παρθένει.
Αυτή ήρθε να με μετρήσει. Αυτός ήρθε να με μετρήσει εμένα, ναι. Να μου μετρήσει τη διαφάνειά μου.
In December 1984, the world's worst industrial accident happened here. This factory released a chemical cloud that killed thousands of people in just a few terrifying hours. The accident happened because of a chemical reaction that took place in this tank. A reaction that led to one of the biggest man-made disasters in history. What happened here was seconds that shocked the entire world. But on the 3rd of December 1984, Bhopal was the scene of a catastrophe on an unprecedented scale, as at least 3,000 people choked to death in a cloud of gas. Many times that number survived that night, only to have their health and livelihoods wrecked, while compensation claims and legal battles continue to rage. The killer chemical was something called methyl isocyanate, or MIC for short, and it came from this plant built at the edge of the city. It has been sealed off from the outside world for over 16 years, preserved by the Indian government as it investigated the cause of the disaster. Perhaps the most chilling artifact here is the actual vessel from which the poison escaped, now dug up from its original underground location. The MIC was released due to an unforeseen and uncontrollable chemical reaction. To explain how it is thought to have happened, several workers at the factory agreed to revisit it for the first time since that terrible night in December 1984. Even with water in the tank, it should have been possible to control the situation. MIC has to be kept cool, and the tanks were housed in a concrete bunker, insulating them from the fierce heat of central India. There was also a cooling system controlled from a purpose-built refrigeration plant. The senior management, however, had decided to switch it off.
This wasn't running on the night of the tragedy. In fact, it had been off since May 84. The coolant inside had been removed and it was permanently disabled.
Switching the refrigeration off was an insane thing to do. These reactions, these exothermic runaway reactions, take place when we're generating more heat than we can remove. The refrigeration system was there to remove heat. Switching it off made this incident much, much more likely.
Incredibly, another safety device had been bypassed, in defiance of Union Carbide's own operating instructions.
See now the reaction is getting quite enthusiastic, getting some bubbles, some droplets of liquid coming out of the top of the vessel. And if this were an industrial scale vessel, we would have a significant emergency on our hands.
At Bhopal, there was a machine purpose-built to deal with toxic gases, a device known as a vent gas scrubber.
ये भोपाल प्लांट का वेंट गैस स्क्रबर है.
This is the vent gas scrubber we had at Bhopal.
प्लांट से जो जहरीली गैसें निकलती है.
It works by neutralizing toxic gas before releasing it into the atmosphere.
उस रात को ये स्क्रबर काम कर रहा.
On the night, though, it was switched off for maintenance.
एक वीक पहले तक मेंटेनेंस का काम इस पे चलता रहा.
Even if this vital piece of equipment had been on, it was too small to cope with the quantity of MIC that was now out of control.
This is really bubbling violently now. As you can see, lots of gas being generated, and of course at Bhopal, the whole thing was happening on a scale 100,000 times bigger. There's absolutely nothing that can be done to slow this down. Heat is being generated so fast that on an industrial scale we cannot remove it quickly enough to stop the reaction. This is the worst nightmare for a chemical plant operator. This is a disaster.
V.N. Singh was working at the plant that night, and it was his duty to check the area where the pipe washing had started some 4 hours earlier. By this time, midnight, water was flowing once again from the drainage nozzles, but he noticed that something was wrong. The disaster was just minutes away.
When I got here, I saw water running out of the bleeders, but my eyes started to hurt. This was quite common at the factory, but that day it was very, very bad, so I ran to the control room.
What V.N. Singh saw when he got to the control room about a minute later was the final stage of a chemical process that had been underway for over 2 hours.
At a molecular level, things are happening extremely fast.
So I came running out to tank E610, and even though it was underground, you could hear a terrible rumbling noise, and the concrete started to shake and crack.
The tank was now in serious danger of bursting, but it held. Instead, a pressure relief valve blew, and the gas was on its deadly way. It travelled to the main plant structure, through the useless vent gas scrubber, and then out. The gas was carried away by a southeasterly wind, clear of the plant, but directly over the sleeping city of Bhopal.
Time of the disaster, Union Carbide's failure to provide full information regarding the nature of poisoning meant that doctors did not know the best course of treatment for gas victims. Even to this day, Union Carbide and its new owner Dow have refused to release information to survivors and Indian medical agencies about the gas composition or its effect on human health.
A safety audit of the plant carried out by American inspectors back in 1982 had noted a total of 61 hazards. By the following year, none of the audit's recommendations had been implemented.
I told them, and I told them that the way things are going, it wouldn't really surprise me if we have a huge tragedy on our hands. I did not use the word tragedy, I said disaster.
And how did they react? How did they respond?
Nothing, they wished me good luck and threw me out.
After the disaster, Union Carbide worked hard to find something to blame other than its own negligence. None of the plant's safety systems were functioning on the night of the disaster. Some were being repaired, others had been shut down to save money.
Later we learned that many safety measures at the plant did not work, that the flare tower was disconnected, that the vent gas scrubber was out of caustic soda and undersized, that the water curtain was undersized, that the pressure valve was not working, that the runoff tank already contained MIC, and that the necessary refrigeration for the MIC unit had been turned off to save money.
Η ανάκαμψη της οικονομίας, επομένως, είναι συνυφασμένη με τη μάχη κατά της διαφθοράς και το ερώτημα είναι πώς μπορούμε να προσελκύσουμε νέα κεφάλαια επενδύσεων όταν οι νόμοι δεν εφαρμόζονται, όταν η παρανομία αγνοείται αντί να τιμωρείται.
Αυτός ήρθε να με μετρήσει εμένα, ναι. Να μου μετρήσει τη διαφάνειά μου.
ΣΚΑτοκομματρία.
Όλα σκατά.